Yeah,
Hey, it's Melanie Smith.
come on up.
Well, I can't believe I'm saying it, but Melanie Smith, welcome to Seincast.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Great to have you. This is a real treat. You are royalty to us, just so you know.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad I'm royalty to someone. Tell my son.
Well, Melanie, I figured we could, sort of start at the beginning, as they say, and just hear what was it like growing up in Pennsylvania? How did you get into acting?
Well, those are two different questions.
Busted.
Growing up in Pennsylvania was growing up in Pennsylvania. I'm from Scranton, Pennsylvania, so it was a great place to grow up. Seriously, and great friends, and it was sort of small towny. Scrantonians have a way about them, we kind of know from Joe Biden even. So that was a great way to grow up. But how I got into acting is I never wanted to be an actor. But speaking of Scranton, my best childhood friend was working at a major agency at the time, and she had forgotten to send 3 girls. She needed to send 3 girls on a talent search for Dick Clark. And she forgot. And she called me in hysterics saying she was going to get fired. The agency she was with at the time was called Triad. They're not in existence anymore, but they were actually very big back then. And she said she was going to get fired, and I had to go. And I was actually a dancer early on into college. And she said, just show up, dance. And I said, well, I'm not dancing anymore. I had bursitis in my left hip, so I had stopped dancing for about a year. And she said, well, I don't care what you do, just read from a book then. So I grabbed a book and I said, I'm going to read from a book. And she said, they're not even going to notice you. There's going to be 6,000 girls there. And I said, all right. So I went, and they called me over after I read from a book. It was actually called Texas Trilogy. I remember the book. And I found sort of the longest paragraph. It wasn't even a play or anything. And they called me over after, and they said, you have to get headshots, and you have to go see this acting coach, and you have to. And I didn't want any of it. And so I said, I'm really not interested. And they said, we'll pay for it. Oh. And so I went, and the next thing I knew, I was top 25 in the country. And I was on the front page of the New York Post there was a picture of me that said, Melanie Smith, she's got the right stuff.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, and then a bunch of agents wanted to sign me. And when I finally signed with one, I said to them, they explained to me how you have to work really hard and wait tables and work for free. And I said, look, I don't work for free. If I don't have a job in 3 months, I'm going back to, what I had planned or try other options. And within 3 months, I had 2 feature films and As the World Turns. God, so that's how it started.
If you're lucky enough to go to college, you're like, all right, now what? What do I do? You just go straight into this acting career, almost like, no plans for it.
There were no plans. And I've said this to my son, because we're looking at universities now and going all over the place. I said, my life happened to me. I didn't make a plan. It really the universe kind of came in and swept me up and said, no, we sort of have a different trajectory for you. We're going to do it this way. And I believe there was a reason for it, because I use it a great deal in my life today. But and as I always say, the universe doesn't necessarily pick who's qualified, but it will always qualify who it picks. So, once I ended up on TV, I studied really hard and got trained.
Did you like it, immediately, or was this something where you're like, this isn't right for me?
Well, it's funny. As the World Turns was my mother's favorite show. Mm-hmm. oddly enough, when I was born and I was sick and I had major surgery and I was 11 months old, and my mother used to rock me every day while she would watch As the World Turns. And so when I started on As the World Turns, my first directorial note of my entire professional career, the director comes down and gives you notes after they see the scene. And the director came in and he gave everybody their notes, and he came over to me and he said, "Could you please be just a little nervous?" And there's something about how when you kind of like trust wherever you're being carried, you're really not nervous. I mean, I was enthusiastic and excited, but I wasn't nervous. I knew I had a lot to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I was in a new world. I knew I was in a world that I was learning a craft. I never felt like I was somewhere I shouldn't have been or didn't deserve to be or anything like that. I felt like I was where I was supposed to be, learning the things I was supposed to learn, and working as hard as I could through a sense of devotion and commitment, how to live up to what my peers were expecting of me.
So in addition to being on a show like As the World Turns, do you work on your craft on the side, like with classes or?
Yes, I went to Neighborhood Playhouse to really elevate. I was with some of the really best actors in New York. I was with people like, Larry Brigman, and, I was with terrific actors. I mean, Julianne Moore played my half-sister, Marissa Tomei. Meg Ryan had just left. She was my sister on the show. So Parker Posey, Ming-Na Wen. I mean, we were really a great cast to watch at that time. And Doug Marlin was a fantastic writer. Martha Byrne was off Broadway. She came out of Annie, and we had real thespians on that show. So it wasn't like As the World Turns was known for that. They weren't known for the people that like looked a certain way so they got the job.
Well, I hate saying it, but when I think of most soap operas, I don't think of the kind of people you just listed. You know what I mean?
There were so many great actors on that show that they would go between working at night on Broadway in leading roles and being nominated for Tony Awards and coming and doing daytime because, it was a real job. And you learned your craft. And I got to tell you, I was, it's like being on the court with a greater player. I was trained fast and well, and I was playing ball with the best of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, now you're living in New York at the time. Did you then just decide to venture out into LA, or did future projects come to you? Like, how did that work?
Well, I had toyed with leaving the show because actually my mother at that time was dying of cancer. And so I was deciding whether or not I was going to leave the show completely, take a leave of absence, whatever. And then I got calls from my agent. I've always been very blessed. I had great agents. And they said, they really want to fly you out. And they used to do that in the old days. They want, now you have to pay for everything, but they used to fly you out. They want to fly you out. And they want to test you for this new series. It was called Homecoming or something. And I went, and I went out a number of times. And while I was out there, I got a film, and then I got a pilot, and it just sort of, again, happened organically.
It's just incredible when I hear stories from people like yourself. Everything seems so linear, and this happened, then this happened, and that's the way it goes. But it doesn't feel that way, I'm sure, while you're living it. You just sort of live your life, and things either come to you or they don't, really. There's no rule book.
Well, it's funny, one of the reasons why we have to drum into our heads all the time that the only time is now is because it's so hard for the human brain to wrap itself around now. It's always looking at, like, what should I be doing? What's in my plan? So even when great things are happening to you, you're trying to prepare for how to keep them happening to you, or how to, shift things so they consistently stay in a positive direction. So life doesn't always feel the way it sounds when you're talking about it in hindsight, as you just said. But, my experience was a lot better than 99% of the people that I've talked to that had an experience in this industry.
Mm-hmm. You decide to stay in LA.
I did. They say is it 3 stages of living in LA?
Oh, really?
Yeah, they say you get there and you go, I can't believe I live in LA. And then you go, I can't believe I live in LA. And then you go, I can't believe I live in LA. Right? So I got there and it was like so foreign to me. It wasn't really a place I wanted to live. And by the way, I had just gotten my driver's license, which was bananas. To really drive on the 405 is insane. And so there I was in this whole new way of being. I really had very little time to wrap my mind around anything, from Pennsylvania to, New York to LA. It just went so quickly and time really flew. So I went out and I ended up living in LA. I thought temporarily, and then it didn't work out that way.
Everyone listening knows you best as Rachel on Seinfeld, but before Seinfeld, you actually had I think a 5-episode run on Melrose Place.
Yes,
which
actually,
I want to talk about.
Yeah, I was actually supposed to be Heather's role.
Really?
Yes, and I was doing a pilot, so I couldn't take the offer. So they wrote this other character, to Aaron, who was a terrific man. I loved Aaron. He was so wonderful to me. I mean, I did 4 series with him. And I was his ethnic person. When you don't have blue eyes, you're ethnic. So.
Sure.
And luckily I have like some small amount of Portuguese in me. So it was like, okay, she can even the network will accept her. So, so every show that he did, I think in that run of time, I was always either being offered a show with Aaron or I was going to network or screen testing for Aaron. So I was in his little, the corral of the people that he moved around. I was, one of the pieces that he moved around in his company. So, I did, actually I did more than 5, but only, I think actually 6 aired.
Oh, okay.
But I think I did 12.
Oh, so what happened to the other ones?
If I remember correctly, it was a long time ago. If I remember correctly, I had to leave and do another series. And so I think they had to run the storyline a little bit differently.
Got it. Okay. It's funny because I just, always assumed that Seinfeld was sort of your big break, but it sounds like with As the World Turns to Melrose Place, I mean, you're a pretty confident person moving forward here. When Seinfeld comes your way, it's not like, whoa, this is crazy. It was just probably another job to you, right?
I had never even watched it.
There you go.
My agents called me. I was on my way I think I was going from Warner Brothers, and I had to go over to Paramount. I had a meeting at Paramount. And they called me and they were like, look, they're casting this 1-hour special. They have not been able to find this girl. Can you stop by MTM? And I was like, oh, really? I hate going over the hill. I'm going to be late. What's this for? So I went in, and everybody was there. Jerry was there. And I was like, hey, what's up? So what do I need to do? And Jerry actually asked me what the name of my corporation meant. He thought it was hysterical. The name of my corporation is All About Grapefruits. And I said, well, do you read Oscar Wilde? And he was like, not really. And I said, well, Oscar Wilde once said, a grapefruit is nothing but a lemon that had a shot and took it. And that's me. And so he was like, I love that. So anyway, we read the scene and then they were like sort of like looking at each other. It's like, can I go? Because I got to be over the hill.
Oh, wow.
And
I feel like that cinched it for you right there. Like just your total attitude towards this whole thing is...
Well, it actually even got funnier because so then I left. And before I even got over to the other side, my agent called me and said, I don't know what you did, but you got the job. Wow. And I was like, okay, cool. And they said, you have to be on set, because it was an hour special, they pre-filmed half of it because there were so many sets. They couldn't have the live audience for the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So they had sets behind sets on the soundstage. And so I went in for the first day of filming, and I was on set, and like all these people were coming up to me, giving me directorial notes, and Larry and Jerry. And I mean, it was like one person after the other. And I said, everybody needs to stop. I can't work this way. One person speak to me, and you pick whoever it's going to be, but you got to tell me right now. And Jerry was standing there looking at me like, who are you? So, the director came up to me and he's like, introduce me. And I said, you all should, by the way, introduce yourself to me, because that was completely impolite.
Oh, no, wait, hang on. So you're on set. Did you guys have like a proper table read or?
No, because this was the pre-filmed stuff. So I was like literally thrown in.
Okay.
Like I came on into the soundstage, they put me into wardrobe, they did my hair and makeup, they threw me out onto the set. I hadn't met anybody. Because this was an hour special, which was broken down to 2 parts, it was filmed as an hour special. It wasn't, and they had been working so hard to cast this character. I came in sort of last minute. Yeah. So there I go. And I'm like, nobody's introduced themselves to me. Somebody needs to tell me who I'm listening to, because I'm not listening to all of you. Mm-hmm. Or as Jerry would say, all y'all. I don't know if you saw the Steve Harvey thing he did, but it's so funny. All y'all.
Oh, on Comedians in Cars?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All y'all. So then after the taping, I was in the makeup room, and Jerry came in, and he was like, I have no idea who you are. But like, nobody does that on the set. And I was like, well, that was really impolite. And he's like, you're right, it was. That was really our bad. And so anyway, I got done filming that, I think it was that day or 2 days later. And then Jerry called me at home and said, if we write for you, will you stay?
Oh, that's incredible. I mean, that was my big question, Melanie, was, I mean, you are on the show longer than any girlfriend. At least that doesn't become an ex, you know what I mean? Like some exes reappear, but you have the longest track record.
Right.
Which I think is incredible. And I'm like, what did you do to get that? Was it just luck? Was it just the way the story went? It was obviously a reflection of who you are as a person.
Well, it was funny because, first of all, I think that, look, this is wherever I go, I'm going to land with a level of integrity. And also I'm very well-mannered. Mm-hmm. My dad was nearly 100 when he passed away. I was raised like I was raised in the 50s, and like, you just don't walk into a room and have people talk to you. Like, you introduce yourself to me, and if whoever I'm supposed to listen to, I will listen to. But like, you can't be all coming at me telling me what to do. And so I think there was something about that kind of set a mood. And then I think it also was funny because, Jerry asked me out a number of times, and I said no.
What? You're saying no to me?
He did say, I can have any girl I want. What do you mean you won't go out with me? I was like, you're not my type.
Oh, wow. I mean, we have a lot of theories about Jerry, like that we usually keep off mic just so the lawyers don't come knocking. But yeah, that seems very accurate.
Yeah. And he just was like, that was it. It was like, he was like, they used to make a joke. I'd come in and Jerry will be right behind her at any moment. He's turning the corner, But I really wasn't interested. Mm-hmm. And I really liked him. We sat together at lunch a few times, and he's like, let's sit in my car. And I was like, okay, what's up? So anyway, you know, he was a doll and he was sweet, but he, you know, it wasn't a romantic connection for me. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what had to do with them saying, like, let's write for her and let's keep her. But that's what occurred. Was when I remember I was sitting on my couch, my phone rang, and I was like, I think I was on the other line, and he's like, "Hi, it's Jerry Seinfeld." And I was like, "Okay, can you hang on a second?" And he won the face off, and then he said, "You know, if we write for you, will you stay?" And I said, "Yeah, sure."
I mean, that's something that's just not done on that show, as you know. You have these great, recurring characters, but for a girlfriend, it's sort of a running joke. Oh, Jerry has a new girlfriend every week. When you were told that, were you thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to be like a series regular on this show? Like, I'm going to be the fifth member? Did it ever feel like that? Or did this just feel like it's going to run its course until the end of the season?
It's funny. I never thought about anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, I always kind of thought, so this is what I'm doing today. And I think that's a really nice thing that just happened. I must have done a good job. Wow. It was never, oh my God, this is my big break. This is what's gonna, I was never looking to catapult. It's like, I think a lot of people go into this business to try to be a star. And I was going into anything in my life, and I basically live my life with this philosophy now, is I go into it to try to master a sense of excellence at it. It's not about what the outcome is necessarily. Yes, I want to pay my bills. Yes, I want to have a good life. But if I can be world class at something, or if I can be serve in service of others in the best way possible, then I feel successful. Mm-hmm. So there was never a moment, I felt really fortunate also because people had said when they found out, and even my agents had said when they found, when I got the job, don't take it personally. They're very, very sort of insular there. They don't really bring the guest stars in, so don't feel like you're being rejected, And I felt immediately like I was part of the cast. Like I just felt I got along with everybody great, and everybody was wonderful. They couldn't be more inviting. They had the best craft service of any place I'd ever worked. Like, where do you work in Hollywood where you get like bagels and cream cheese and lox? It's like the best. So I just always kind of it just felt natural. I never felt, but I was lucky that way in almost every job I did.
Yeah.
And I understand, if your biggest dream is to be on camera, then I get, but like I said, I'm so old fashioned in a lot of ways. I can't stand for certain things. Mm-hmm. Like I can't. And I can't tell that story to a public, and it would go against my moral fiber. So there were roles that I passed on that were, series regulars, big roles that I just was like, I can't represent that. It's not good.
But something about Seinfeld, of course, you got it.
Yeah. It was just funny. It was like, first of all, we were making out in a movie, and that's what, people do, so it wasn't like we did something evil, it just happened to be Schindler's List. Which just played into the whole dynamic of that show so well anyway.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you came back the following week for the Hamptons, I assume your experience was a little different. For something like that, it's a half-hour show as opposed to the hour. And, you've already worked with these actors already, but, this time you're on a completely different set. You still filmed in front of an audience, though, for that, right?
Yeah, well, we filmed in front of an audience for the first one as well. It's kind of complicated, but the Schindler's List, they filmed part of it without the audience because we had sets behind sets. But when we were filming the second part of it that the audience was there for, they would play the scenes that were already filmed. Mm-hmm. So the audience saw an hour show in its entirety while we were filming it. It's just some of it was pre-filmed. So even the laughter in Schindler's List was real. It just came from them watching the video, not the live.
Sure.
And then when I went into the Hamptons, that was all live. Yeah.
Right. And, you have all these people coming at you during the raincoats, giving you all these, directions, and you're like, all right, enough. For the Hamptons, did you get any direction for your character that you can remember? I know this was over 20 years ago, so...
Yeah, but I will tell you something that's very interesting, was that moment, that second, oh my God, I'm so sorry, mm-hmm. That was not in the script. I did that in dress.
Really? You're talking about the part where you laugh?
Where I look at him, I look at his shrinkage, yes. And... So the line was, oh my God, I'm sorry, I thought this was the baby's room. That was the line. but when I in dress rehearsal, I said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought this was the baby's room." And then I went, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And I was just, and Larry started laughing. He's like, "Can you do that again?" And I was like, "Of course I can do that again." But that was not in the original script. Oh my God. I'm sorry. I thought this was the baby's room. I'm really sorry.
That's incredible. That scene, right? So it's the scene I'm sure most people know you from.
Yeah, it was the shot fired around the world.
Really, yeah. I want to talk about like the impact, that one scene had on you. But, everyone remembers it as one of one of the funniest George moments. But the camera's on you pretty much the whole time. Like, it's not right. Jason. He's a wonderful actor, theater trained, everything. But it's all you. It's all right. That reaction. And you just did a wonderful job in that little moment.
Thank you.
No pun intended, but so when that episode aired, did people start quoting it to you, or?
It doesn't matter where. So I'll give you an example. I was at an event in Philly, and somebody announced me, and it was like the entire room came up to get pictures and autographs, and I'm thinking to myself, 20 years on television, and someone says the word shrinkage, and boom, you know what I mean? It is funny because, so I have sort of three really big fan bases, and one is daytime, and one is Star Trek, and one is Seinfeld. Mm. Now, the other shows, I'll have smaller groups that know me from my Aaron Spelling days and other groups that know me from some other series or some films that I did. But those are primarily my fan bases, or those three, which is interesting because those are three of the most committed fan bases in the industry.
It was DS9 you were on, right?
DS9, yeah.
Yeah, I'm only on Next Gen at the moment.
Oh,
I'm so upset that I haven't gotten to DS9 because I'd love to pick your brain about that too. But in that Hamptons arc, were you given a reason why you didn't like George? Because you kind of come off like you don't like him. Well,
if I can remember correctly, I think he's annoying. Mm-hmm. Like I just played. So when you look at the Schindler's List, obviously Newman is my nemesis, right? Newman gets us in trouble. I can't see Jerry anywhere because of Newman. But in the Hamptons episode, the way it was written, although, it's our job as actors to figure out why. It's not necessarily stated. It's not exposition necessarily. But my feeling, because the way it was written, if you remember I say like he's a strange little man or something like that. Don't I say that someplace in the script? I say something like
you say strange man.
It's like strange man, right? And so I just, in making, my own choices, I just played that I found the guy annoying. Mm-hmm. And George was annoying.
Yeah.
Jason's a doll. Jason's an absolute doll.
When we were talking about it, it's not like we were thinking, like, what's wrong with Rachel? He's a perfectly normal individual. We were wondering, was there something like in like a cut dialogue maybe, or did something happen, before all this, maybe from the raincoats that we're not putting together? But I think you're totally justified finding him annoying.
Yeah, I can't remember if I was ever given a note or anything about that.
Right. Did Jason have any difficulty filming that scene with you during the shrinkage? Because I've noticed from interviews, over the first couple of seasons, he seemed to get a little uncomfortable whenever the jokes were personal. He's a very neurotic, kind of guy on the show, but he commented once, can we lay off like the bald jokes or the the stocky jokes?
Right. No, he had such a great sense of comedy. Mm-hmm. That, I didn't find that he was ever uncomfortable with anything. Terrific dramatic actor too.
Oh my God. Yeah. Really going into the show of the main four, he is the most classically trained actor,
Yeah, and he's terrific in all the dramatic roles he's ever played. He is a real thespian.
Mm-hmm. Did you get a chance to see him or Larry in Fish in the Dark at all?
I hate to say this, but it was like such a ordeal to get in and to see it. But I heard it was wonderful. Was it good?
Yeah, it was great. It was essentially Curb live, pretty much.
That's what I figured. That's why I was like, I love Larry. I had so much fun working with Larry, always on Seinfeld and on Curb. And by the way, one of my dear friends, Bob Whitey, it was basically co-created that show with him. And they had a screening before the pilot aired where we all kind of voted on the title of the show.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you remember any other alternate titles, or?
There were 10 of them. I think there were 10 of them. And there were probably 9 of us in the screening. It was in a tiny little place in LA. And we had serve. And I said to Larry, like, it's totally Curb Your Enthusiasm. There's just no other contenders on this list. Mm-hmm. The other titles were pretty forgettable.
Right. Well, real quick, I'd love to talk about Curb in a second here. Just going back to Seinfeld real quick, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Now, with the opposite, when they brought you back again, you didn't really have as much to do in that episode. It was more of just like a breakup scene.
Yeah, it was the breakup scene. Yeah,
the breakup scene. But when you were saying goodbye, were you wondering if you were going to come back in any way, sort of maybe be like this on again, off again girlfriend, or did it kind of feel like that was it for Rachel?
I was going on to another show.
Oh, you were. So contractually, you weren't obligated.
Right.
Did you want to come back? Like, if you were able to, would you have done it? Or were you kind of like, I think I did all I needed to do on that show?
Again, I go back to like, oh, is that so? Like, oh, okay. It's like Mr. Magoo, I fell off a boat. I landed on you know what I mean? I fell off the haystack. I landed on the car.
You just start walking off. They're like, oh, there goes Melanie.
It was sort of like, Peter Sellers in Being There, it's just like, so it is. So that's where I am now. And
I love that.
If I came back and that's where it was going to happen, then that was what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Seinfeld to me is such an interesting show because it seems like, from what we've gathered, that they kind of marched to the beat of their own drum there and had sort of their own way of doing things.
Yeah, and they were such a fun... When I did I think it was the first one, right? That Dee Dee Pfeiffer was on with me. Wasn't Dee Dee on the first one?
She was actually in the opposite.
So she was in the opposite. Oh, so yeah. So I had been there now for a bit, and I saw Jerry and the gang. We would all go out to Jerry's Deli, like in between, like we would hang a little bit. And so someone came up to me. I think a PA came up to me and said, "Do you hear that there's a famous person's sister on the show?" And they're like, "Do you know who it is?" And I'm thinking to myself, "You're not getting the Pfeiffer thing?" So I said, "It's me. Jacqueline Smith is my sister."
Wow.
And so this whole thing turned into this and Dee Dee was laughing hysterically because she's like, everybody's talking about how you're Jacqueline Smith's sister. So they always had a great sense of humor there. Everybody, literally top down. Like it was like, didn't matter who it was. Everybody had a great sense of humor there.
Oh, that's fantastic. So when Seinfeld is over, you eventually, you stay in LA, but you create another name for yourself on Star Trek, right? On DS9.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And can you just tell our listeners and the person conducting the interview here, because he's still on Next Generation, what your character was and what it was like filming that show?
So my character's name was Tora Zial, and she was half Cardassian, half Bajoran. And it was interesting because when I read the script and I read the character breakdown, she was a child that was raised in a war camp, and she was at odds with her father and all these different things. And it was funny because I had taken a really particular liking to the character, and I really saw her as an ambassador of peace. And that is not at all how it was written, apparently. Oh, wow. But when I went in for the meeting, there were a number of A-list actresses there. And, there were maybe 7 of us that they wanted to see. And everybody was in these military clothes. And I wore a dress because I saw her as this innocent. And I went in and I really played the character as an innocent who wanted to bring love between these two communities, the Cardassians and the Bajorans. And when I walked in and I saw everybody completely made the same choice, but polar opposite of the choice that I had made. I was like, okay, well, I'll just really go in and have fun with this, and just play what I see her as 100%. Because I'm not, if this is what they're looking for, I don't want it, and I'm not going to get it anyway. So it didn't make a difference. So I went in and I just really played the love of the character. And when I left, I walked out the door and my cell phone rang, and my agent said, they still have to complete the readings, but you got the job. Wow. And I was shocked because I thought I was definitely, first of all, I was probably the least known actress there. And I had clearly already made up in my mind, which isn't this interesting? I made up in my mind, I blew it anyway, but I wasn't going to try to do anything that I didn't believe in. So yeah, I was just so freed up to just love that character up that it worked, and then, but filming that show was very, very, very hard, which is why I really had to get out of there.
When you say get out of there, do you mean the prosthetic world? Because you did wear a lot of, heavy makeup.
It was 4.5 hours of makeup every morning.
Wow.
And it was 2.5 hours to take it off.
Yikes. Okay. So when you say get out of there, you didn't just mean that kind of show. Did you mean acting in general?
No, I had woke up to the fact during that run that something was starting to not feel aligned in my world. That I really enjoyed acting, and yet I didn't feel the same way about it that my friends who were so committed to the art did. Like, I was very close to, I'm sure you know who Mariska Hargitay is. Mm-hmm. Marish and I were very close at that time. We were actually next door neighbors. And, we would go out to lunch and dinner all the time. And she loved the work so much. Like, it was so alive in her. She had so much passion for the work. She was so committed. And it was such a beautiful thing to watch. And I remember oftentimes thinking, why don't I feel that way? I think you're supposed to feel that way. And I started to realize I was a bit out of alignment. And it was during that time I would be in my dressing room and I would be thinking, I don't think I'm in the right life. I think I'm supposed to be using this for something else and not making this my end game. And of course, going in, my call times were 4 a.m. Wow. And I sometimes wasn't out of there till 9 p.m. So yeah, that job itself was a turning point also because I got to play a character that was so close to who I wanted to be.
Could you tell me a little bit more about your character? From you explained the audition process. Did what you brought to the character then kind of transform it into something else?
Absolutely, yeah. Tora Ziyal really, they really wrote her as that artistic, loving, she has this beautiful love affair and she creates love and connection with her father, and which of course at the peak of was perfect because they were looking to kill a character and they wanted just to go back a little bit. After my third series regular contract, I had said to my agents, I don't want any more series regular contracts. I want 12 recurring, max maybe 24 recurring, because it's, even though it seems like a great thing to be under contract for a really long time, for me it wasn't. It's I always felt like I wanted to grow, and when you signed a contract, it was typically for 7 years. And that's a long growth period in a person's life. And so the idea of being the same place 7 years from now, and I learned it from As the World Turns, and then I really learned it in 2 other contracts that I had signed, that it's not the greatest choice for the evolution of your work. And so anyway, when I was on Deep Space, I had come to, I think, my final however many, and they wanted to kill off a character, and I said, oh, let it be me. and actually that was exciting to them because that way they could bring my character to this crescendo of she finally unites with her father. everybody loves this girl because she's such an innocent. She really wants peace and love between communities. Let's shoot her. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a really impactful moment for the Deep Space Nine viewership, because people really did want to see unity between those two worlds. And the character really did start to bring that together. And of course, like, it's not such a big deal when just some guy on the show dies. This was a pivotal point. So it was a really cool job. It's just one I could not have maintained. It was really a lot of work. And by the way, one of my favorite characters I ever played.
I was kind of getting at that, and that's why I'm so upset that I'm not familiar with Deep Space Nine like the way I am with the original series and Next Gen. Because, I mean, forget Seinfeld. I have a feeling like we could talk for hours all about Star Trek.
Well, at least I could. A fan did a really beautiful tribute. And if you Google Torres-Zial tribute, mm-hmm. I think they had sent it to me. I think it was called like a Torres-Zial tribute, and you'll see a montage of some of my work on the show, and it will give you an idea of how lovely she was.
Fantastic. We'll definitely include a link in our show notes that people can check out, as we're discussing it. But your time with Deep Space Nine wrapped up, I want to say like in the mid to late 90s. Does that sound about right?
You got me, kid.
Okay.
What was it?
If only there was a website that I could just look at and it would tell me and I wouldn't have to ask.
Maybe we start that and call it like IMD. I don't know. We'll think about it later. Yeah. But by the way, IMDb is not accurate.
Yeah, I'm coming to learn that. I mean, it does list you as only having like a handful of episodes on As the World Turns.
Yeah, I mean, I was on there for almost 5 years, It's like
3 episodes.
And I was on it like every day for almost 5 years. So it's, they're not terribly accurate. And then it has like, I think they have me like as either producing or being in some porn.
Oh, well, that's
and I'm like, I don't know. I don't remember that one. But, they do make some mistakes.
Right.
Emily on As the World Turns was a really fun character to play. And, I was the only character in daytime that was actually a villainess, and I was nominated for Most Outstanding Heroine. So it was like, that was a fun thing to do, to take somebody who was written as so difficult and such a, forgive my French, I'm sure you can bleep it out, such a bitch, and actually really lost. And to play her where I never got any hate mail. I never got any negative feedback. I only got love. And, then to be nominated for Most Outstanding Heroine, and to win a People's Choice for Most Valuable Performer on daytime, it was like a great run, and it was so much fun to play that character. However, Torres-Zial is what I stand for in life as a human being, which is, we're all in this together, no matter what way you slice it.
Were you approached by Larry to do Curb Your Enthusiasm, or was this another audition? How did this work?
They called me and they said, we wrote something for you. And I said, oh, that sounds fun. And I was like, what is it? And they said, well, it's on Curb and it's going to be this. And it wasn't written, obviously, because it's all improv. But we have this character we want you to play. And I said, oh, well, when is it? And they said, it's next week. And I was like, I can't. I have to go back to Scranton because it's my son's birthday party. And they were like, what are you talking about? You're not going to do this because of your son's birthday party? And I was like, yeah, well, my sister rented a tent. And they were like, we'll pay for the tent. Tell her to keep it for the week.
We'll move the birthday. It's okay.
So I was like, really? And then there was a running joke, and I will not say the actress's name, but Bob called me and said, Larry said, if you don't do it, he's going to give it to so-and-so. There was sort of like a running joke around this situation. And I said, well, I guess that means I have to do it. So I called my sister and she said, oh my God, you have to stay and do it. And so I stayed. But the funny thing was, there was so much attention brought to shrinkage and Schindler's List. And then when I got off the plane, the couple weeks after, when I went back home for my son's birthday and whatever, there was this full page picture of me and Larry, and it said, does Larry David go too far or cross the line again? Oh. And Larry was like, you and I always seem to get in trouble. So again, you asked me that question about Schindler's List. There was definitely an edgy inappropriateness to the character that I played, Lucy Montone, on Curb Your Enthusiasm. And Larry made it funny.
A lot of our listeners actually haven't seen Curb. They've only, they only stick with Seinfeld. And we try to promote Curb as much as we can because it seems like the next step.
Right.
But I remember watching your episode for the first time and I'm like, wow, I don't think I've ever seen the subject of incest be explored in a comedy before. And
no.
Not even a little bit. And it's just handled so well. Is that the right term?
Well, the thing about Larry and Jerry, both of them, they're so smart that they're able to turn what might appear to be malice into humanness. Here you have this neurotic guy and his ex-girlfriend's gone through this experience, and a guy like Larry, on his best day, doesn't want to get thrown into that pot. He doesn't manage those things well as a human being, and he knows his limitations. So to see it through those eyes, like, look, this isn't about you. This is about me not having to cope with this because this is not my wheelhouse. Mm-hmm. And that makes it funny.
Was it challenging for you to work on a show like Curb? Because, as you mentioned, it's practically improv. I assume you get some bits of dialogue or just ideas that need to be hit.
Not one word.
Really?
Yeah, it's total improv. So, in other words, Bob would come up to me and he'd say, "In this scene, just make sure you give a contact number, a fact that you want to have lunch or get to talk to him, and I don't even know why yet." And, make mention of the vagina monologues or they're going to bring up something, react to that and boom, that's it.
I mean, for the episode, you want to meet with Larry to tell him that you'd like him to accompany you to an incest survivors meeting.
Right.
Now, is that right?
Yes.
But you didn't even know that's what your character had gone through?
Well, before when they called me, they said, you're going to play, my ex-girlfriend. It's going to have something to do with like incest survivors. You're an incest survivor, and it's just going to unfold from there. And the whole thing, like I'm all tapped out at the beginning of the show. The whole thing with him and Cheryl, it's just so clever. And this stuff lives in Larry's head, and nobody gets to know it till it comes out of his head. And then you have to react to it. And sometimes you're like, did he really just... The only thing that was unnerving about that was like, it would be like being a tightrope walker, like you don't know the wind velocity necessarily. You think you do. You think you have the right stuff with you. And then all of a sudden, a bird flies into your face. And you go, wait a second. First of all, I can't fall down, but I also can't look like a bird just flew into my face. So he'll say something, even when he said to me, like, well, it was a step. Does a step count?
Yes.
There's a part of me that goes, did he just say that out loud? Right? And then and as you can see when I respond, I start to laugh and then I go, no, Larry, if it's step, it's a date. And then I see the cameramen behind them cover their mouths because they're about to laugh so hard, and I can't laugh.
So what's going on? I'm very curious as to why you invited me to lunch.
Okay, remember when we were dating? And I told you about my stepfather and what happened with my stepdad, yeah?
Yep. And did not breathe a word of it to anyone.
Good, because you're the only person I ever told about that. But I kind of feel like what happened, I feel like it's really starting to affect my life a lot now. And there's something called an incest survivor group. So I don't want to go alone. And I was thinking maybe could you go with me? Do you want me to spell it out? Can you go with me, Larry? Please.
You want me to go to the incest group with you?
Yeah.
What would I do there?
You just be there with me.
There's nobody else you feel comfortable in going with?
Larry, there's nobody else who knows about what happened except for, my stepdad. I'm certainly not going to be him.
Are you sure that you qualify for the stepfather? Is that considered incest?
No,
seriously,
if it's your
might
stepfather, Larry, it's considered a date.
With all due respect to your ordeal, but
Larry,
I was just wondering. If they consider that incest.
So
or
that's
not. Just raising the
I
question.
guess it's a legitimate question.
How do you keep it together? Is that just part of the skill, as it were?
Yeah, and you want to stay with it. You want to stay with it. Mm-hmm. You're intrigued by where it can take you. So it's not like a party game. Mm-hmm. You want to have the experience. It's like a puzzle, and yet it's instinctual. So even the scene where Cheryl and her friend come in, and I'm like, oh, come and join us. And she's like, and he's like, that just came out of my mouth. Mm-hmm. And then when we cut, Larry was like, I can't believe you invited her to join us. And I was like, you just feel what's right in the moment. You don't know what their agenda is. I don't know, because in real life, you don't know what anyone else's agenda is.
Oh, sure.
So you're just in the moment with your agenda.
So it's just great to know, though, that Larry was thinking of you. Vinny and I notice, especially when we see people who are on Seinfeld appear on Curb, we're like, oh, Larry obviously likes to work with people he gets along with, and he really likes.
And it came down to the wire even for the role of Cheryl. I was up for the role of Cheryl, and it also came down to the wire for the movie he did. I forget what grapes.
Oh, Sour Grapes.
Sour Grapes or something. Yeah. Larry likes, and rightfully so, funny women. Mm-hmm. Not that I'm not funny like Julie Louise funny. She's brilliant. I can do comedy. I couldn't do what Julie Louise does. She's brilliant.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting to know that you were in the running for Curb. So he obviously brought you into the fold early on. You alluded to that pilot that you got to watch, and you guys were trying to come up with the name of the show.
Yeah.
Do you still watch the show? Are you still a fan, or is it kind of like working on it is one thing, watching it something completely different?
I got to be honest. I don't really watch a lot of television. Mm-hmm. I love movies, but I really don't watch very much television at all. Which is funny because I sometimes will get, alerts or emails or texts or something. And, friends will say do you know you're on every channel right now? And I'm like, I have no idea. I barely watch the work I ever did.
Right.
My son still has never seen anything I've done.
Is it too just weird for him to be like, Mom, I don't want to watch you on...
I don't have it. Yeah. And, he can, if he wanted to, he can Google little clips and stuff. Mm-hmm. But he's always like, Mom, I got to watch something. And I'm like, well, whatever. It's fine. I don't care. It's all good. Just your mom.
Yeah, it's not a yearly tradition. It's like, let's watch all of Mom's TV shows.
Sit down. Don't move. I'm on.
Well, Melanie, what I'd love to talk about now really is what you've been up to, because you left acting, right? You made a decision at some point to step away from not just the LA lifestyle, but just acting altogether.
It's funny because I kind of live life like improv. And I really look at everything like, and what's next kind of thing. But I had been grappling, I think the real feelings of, okay, I've accomplished a lot. And I had accomplished a lot by the time I decided to leave the industry. And I'm not really feeling I've I figured out that I am who I think I am. And by the way, I don't mean that in an egotistical way. I mean, I'm not certain that this is my purpose. I didn't feel like it was, I felt like it was something I was really good at, I could have gotten great at, and yet it was a little to the left of my sweet spot. And when I started having those feelings, that was one thing. And it was sort of one thing that maybe I could have managed to deal with and stayed on course in the industry and had a very successful remaining career. But after I had my child, I started to feel like I was being so torn that I was no longer the best actress I could be, and I was most definitely not the best mother I could be. And I knew that had I stayed in the industry, I would have, and by the way, this is not a judgment on women who continue to stay in the industry. It was just my own personal experience. This was totally what my capacity could handle. And I felt as though I could only raise my child the way I wanted to if I was present. So people ask me all the time, do I regret it? And my meaningful stock answer is I would have regretted not raising my son. Do I intellectually think life would have been fiscally easier had I stayed? Yeah, I would have had a bunch of cash, but I would have potentially had a child that isn't this one that I have now, who is amazing. By the way, my kid's amazing. He's gorgeous. He's brilliant. He's funny. He's well-adjusted. He's normal and fabulous.
Just about to graduate high school, you were saying, right?
He is. He is. And, and I really deliberately put a lot of stuff on hold to raise him. And I'm glad I did it. But when that came down, I had sold my house. I was married at the time. And I was called by a wonderful casting director who I loved and was so good to me in the industry. And he asked me to have lunch with himself and producers of a new series that was coming on. And they offered me any role on the show that I wanted. And I said I couldn't do it. And they said, it's 22, pay or play. Are you sure? That was a lot of money back then. And I said, I just can't do it. I've got to raise my son. And I left. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that was that. So
you moved back to Pennsylvania. I didn't mean to make it sound like that. Was it an adjustment? Like when you go from, a 15 to 20 year career in LA, back to home base in Pennsylvania, was it an adjustment for you or did it just feel natural? Did it feel right?
Well, it was a huge adjustment. But I kept my relationships, I really kept my relationships. I have great friends in LA. So I kept my relationships there, and my friendships in New York. So I have friends kind of all over the place, but it was a very big adjustment. And for the first year, being a stay-at-home mom was challenging for me. Not because I didn't love being with my son, but because it was like I was so used to being a creative and I was so used to, living a particular level of existence. And there I was sort of in like a big house in the middle of the country and, teaching my kid how to ride a bike and having to be like a whole different kind of patient. Mm-hmm. And that's when I opened my wellness center. And made a decision to kind of create for all intents and purposes, a global brand around wellness. And that's when that started.
It seems like you're building everything, creating everything from the ground up. Was this something you had to study, something you had to, you had to work at for a while, or was it a pretty conceivable thing to build?
You're going to laugh at this one too, because I had the vision. And I just found this location. Literally, we were on, my ex-husband and I were on our way to dinner, and I was like, I have a feeling we're supposed to take like a left here. And we made the turn, and I was like, that's where my business needs to be. And he's looking at me like, it's 5,000 square feet. What are you talking about? And I was like, no, seriously. And so I put together this whole concept of a wellness center and a retail store and a tea bar and yoga rooms and a private office for coaching and counseling. And I wanted it to be magnificently beautiful, and it really was. And I really blew it up, like I had this gorgeous facility. And 3 nights before we were going to open, and I had a whole opening. We had what we called a red mat opening instead of a red carpet opening, with stanchions and red yoga mats. It was really fun. And a lot of my celebrity friends came in from LA to sort of kick it off. And we had local celebrities. We did a fashion show. But the week I was to open, there was a cop shooting. And we lost all our editorial space.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, whoa, that was a bullet. Like, oh, my God. And I really prayed about it. And I said, look, if this is going to be a disaster, please don't let me pour good money after bad. And I'll just say, forget it. I don't even have to open this place. It's just, and just shortly, maybe 30 minutes after I stopped thinking about it, my phone rang, and it was Oprah's producer. And she said, hi, is this Melanie Smith? I said, yes, it is. And she said, listen, we're going to do a reunion show with Seinfeld this week, and you're Oprah's favorite clip. Do you mind if we use you? I need to send a waiver. So would you mind if we use that clip on the show? And I was like, absolutely not. And the networks got wind, and they each did a piece on the opening of my center. So we opened to standing room only.
Wow.
And we were voted, top 5 in the country by Vogue, top 3 in the country by Yoga Journal. We were named the most beautiful studio in the world. And it really, I produced events between 100 and 1,500 people.
Wow.
Yeah. And I did that for 8 years. So when you say, how did you learn to do that? I did it by jumping in. Just jumping in and doing it, and everything, you can figure everything out. This is sort of what I stand for right now for all people in the world. You can figure anything out if you're meant to figure it out. If you're in line with your highest purpose, and I think I said this earlier, the universe doesn't always pick who's qualified, but it will always qualify who it picks. So if you're on your purpose, it will happen. You just have to keep going in, stepping in, leaning in, and you'll figure it out.
And what was the name of the studio?
Yogaphoria.
Yogaphoria.
Yeah.
What do you do nowadays? How do you occupy your time now?
Well, I do a number of things. I also write for magazines. I was a columnist for a number of magazines for a while, but I pulled back to sort of develop this new company, which is called Well Lit Life. And what I do, what does a typical day look like for me is in the mornings I write, but then I have private clients, and I'm in the process of developing curriculum for leaders. And I'll be working on that with some other friends of mine that are great voices in this community as well. And oddly enough, you'll think this is kind of funny. I started learning how to make fragrance because I was studying aromatology, not aromatherapy, the psychology behind fragrance. So I also spend time making fragrance, which will be on my website eventually. So most of my time is spent either working with clients one-on-one, developing programs, working with small groups or large groups, speaking, writing, and making product. But there'll be some new things being launched in the next, I would say, 6 months to a year. I specialize primarily in recovering from change, heartache, disappointment, transition. And I work with entrepreneurs as well in how to shift their stories, recover from their past so that they can be really, really present to create and design the future. So when I talk about a well-lit life, you really have to look at certain things to forgive and release them. And you have to be able to reframe and restore your life so that you can create whatever it is you want. Anything's possible. People put so many limitations. We were talking about this earlier, right, Matt?
Yeah.
People have these stories and these limitations and these pictures in their head the way it's supposed to be. And when you start removing those obstacles, it is amazing. Again, if you go on my website, you'll see a lot of my testimonials. It's amazing what has happened to so many of my clients, and how they have gone from really wishing and wanting to having and being. And, it's one thing to be a successful actor. It's another thing to be like headed out of the house and either your phone rings, your Skype rings, and someone says, I never thought I could be this happy. I never thought I would be living this life. I never thought that I wouldn't be able to distinguish between fun and work. And my life is like I never imagined. And to know that I could co-create that with people, it's not me. It's me being a reflection of what you are and holding your greatest potential and being able to ask the right questions so that you find the answers in yourself and you can make whatever you want happen.
This might be a tough question to answer, but what do you think is the largest epidemic with most of your clients or just with people you meet? What do you think that people struggle with in living a well-lit life? Like why is it so difficult?
I think people are profoundly disappointed because it didn't work out the way they thought it would. And I will say that one part of that sentence again, the way they thought it would. And, I kind of frame it this way. We have stories we tell that can keep us vibrantly alive. And we have stories that we tell that keep us from living. And you have to decide which one you're ready to light up. So people hang on to what didn't happen, what could have happened, what should have happened, who told them it was supposed to happen, what it looked like when they thought things were supposed to happen. And that doesn't have anything to do with what's happening, what could happen, what you could make happen. So that is, I think, the biggest boundary to your greatest life is not letting go of the disappointments or the stories that you've told yourself, and reframing it so that it illuminates all of the potential you carry every single day, everywhere where you go, in anything you do.
The thing I struggle with, personally, for years is, should, this is what should happen or was supposed to happen.
My friend Marilee Adams wrote a book called Change Your Questions, Change Your Life. And, she talks about turning from judging questions to learning questions. So it's like you could look for blame and you could look for why didn't it and it should have and they should have, to what am I meant to learn? How can I get better? What can I take away? So you and I, again, Matt, we talked earlier about how being an actress informs the context of the way I live my life today. And, when I work with people, my 20 years playing characters allowed me to live in a lot of the pathologies or ideas that people carry with them. So it's given me a deep understanding and intuition around the way the human psyche works, not just my studies in psychology. So everybody comes into their lives with a shoulda, woulda, coulda, right? Like everybody does it. Nobody is, well, there's probably a few enlightened beings. But most all people come into, it should have happened this way. It didn't happen that way. There must be something wrong with me and somebody must have broken me. Now everybody's broken in some way, hopefully broken open, but people come to their lives feeling like something went wrong, as opposed to it's just what happened. So what can you design now? Adding intentionality to your life is critical. At some point, some people skate by for a while, but there comes a point where there's no balance or they're not feeling happy or they're not feeling healthy. And in that place, you have to start adding intentionality. You have to start adding a deeper sense of meaning. And without that, and without being in your flow, and without being in your purpose, there is no way to be happy. There's nothing you can lop on top of that feeling of not being in alignment with yourself that will make you feel okay. Nothing, not money, not beauty, not anything. So going back and helping people figure out where their beliefs lie, what stories are true, what stories are old, what stories can be renewed, and really where they resonate from a deep sense of values and fundamentally who they really, really are, and then build on that.
I want to make sure we can let people know where they can find more of your work online. You of course mentioned Well Lit Life.
Yes.
Where can people find out more information about that?
Well, you can go to welllitlife.com, or you could go to Melanie Smith Well. And you could also go to Yogaphoria. All those URLs lead into my site. And really, if you're looking to love profoundly again, love for the first time at all, find your greatest life, reach your highest potential. People ask me all the time, what do you do? This is what I do. I help people live their greatest life, to find their deepest love, and to illuminate the world around them. And that, to me, is what Tora Zial stood for. So she maybe was the catalyst. She was maybe the catalyst. They're asking me now to do the conventions, I guess they are, or like for Star Trek, and that's like really fun. But yeah, Tora Zial was in some ways the character that sparked my awakening to who and what I really wanted to do with my life.
I really need to watch Deep Space Nine like tonight. Do I have to watch all the episodes leading up to it, or can I just watch your arc? That's all I know.
You could probably even watch that tribute, and it would give you an idea of, there's a lot, the funny thing about that role also is like we used words that didn't exist. So you'll hear things like, what's Ramufta? So yeah, it was a blessing. It really was an awakening and a blessing, and it brought me to purpose.
Can people find you maybe on Twitter or Facebook? Is that possible?
Yes, I'm on Facebook. I am on Instagram. I am on Twitter. I don't really know how to use it. I know how to use Instagram. And I'm Yogaphoria on Instagram. Melanie Smith on Facebook. And Well Lit Life on Facebook as well. You can go to Well Lit Life and hear offerings on my Well Lit Life page on Facebook. And I, at some point, will learn how to use Twitter, because sometimes my son is always like, that's social media, Mom. Like, that's why your phone's blowing up right now because someone tweeted something. So I'm like, oh, really? What does that even mean? So I have to get better at that. But yes, I'm on all those things. And on Twitter, I'm Well Lit Life as well, I believe. Yeah, I think I'm Well Lit Life.
Just again, Melanie, thank you so much on behalf of Vinny, who couldn't be here, and Seinfeld fans around the world, Star Trek fans too. Thanks a lot for joining us on Seincast.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and you guys are darling, and I wish you... Didn't I sound like an old lady when I said that? You guys are just darling! You're so cute! You guys are wonderful, and be blessed and keep in touch. And by the way, thank you, everybody, for listening. Your time is valuable, and I can't say thank you enough.